Hey, my name is Andy Thompson. I'm the middle school director here at North Point Community Church. And one of the things that we face with working with middle school students is the ever-changing world of technology. And just when we think that we have it all figured out, here comes another app. As parents, you know the world of technology all too well. You've probably asked yourself, is this too much, or have they been watching that too long? Or how do I keep my students safe online? When it comes to technology with our kids, we know that parenting can be tough. We know that you want to get it right, and we are here to help. So today, let's talk about the ever-changing world of technology. Clay Scroggins, the lead pastor at Buckhead Church and father of 5, is going to sit down with Tom Shefchunas. Now, Tom has worked with adults and students for over 25 years. A lot of those years were here at North Point. Currently, he is the executive director of Youth Specialties, which focuses on resourcing the next generation to become the best leaders that they can possibly become. Tom and his wife, Julie, live in Cumming with their 3 kids and attend Brownsbridge Church. In this interview, Tom will share 8 big ideas in this ever-changing world of technology. And be sure to stay to the end because we have a resource for you that will help guide your child to be technologically responsible.
Tom, thanks for doing this today. You are, I know everybody heard a little bit of your bio, but you're a great voice for this topic because you were an educator.
I was.
You taught school.
I did.
You were an administrator. You supervised.
Those dark days, yeah, I remember those.
You supervised teachers of school.
That's right.
You were a pastor. You worked at North Point. You at one point managed a lot of our student ministry. And you're a parent. You've got teenagers.
3, yeah.
Your oldest is?
17.
Okay.
17, 14, 11. So I'm in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think this conversation is going to be great for all of us. Partly because none of us feel equipped to do this.
Yeah.
All of the data, any surveys that I've seen for parents, when you ask parents today, what is your greatest concern?
Yeah.
It is all around technology, which makes sense. Number one, there is so much technology. But number two, we didn't have all this technology when we were growing up.
And our kids are digital natives. They've grown up in a world where they can't imagine a world without it. And so,
what do you say to parents who feel like, I feel overwhelmed. I don't even know what I'm doing. This is just, it just paralyzes me because I just have no clue.
Yeah. Well, that's a description of parenting. So all of that is parenting.
That's true.
Technology just magnifies it.
That's good.
Because it's coming at you so fast. There's so much we don't know. There's no way to keep up with it. And so it just really becomes a challenge, you know? We just need a plan. We need some ideas. We need some anchors, some handles to hold on to.
Well, that's what you're going to do in this session. We're going to give you 8 principles of technology
that will change your life.
That's right. For $19.99, you can get all 8 of these principles now.
That's right.
No, let's jump into them. I think they really are helpful. They're simple, but they're profound, and I really think they'll be things that we can hold on to. So the first one is this. You say technology is a dynamic context in which we need to learn to parent.
Yeah.
Help us understand what that
means. I don't know if this is helpful for all parents. It was super helpful for me because I had so many parents coming to me and they would ask questions like, hey, what's a good app? As if an app is going to solve the technology issues for you. This is just the idea that technology is not a problem to be solved. You know, I think, as a parent, you need to solve the problem of acne for your adolescent kid. You find a solution, you pay for the solution, and then you kind of move on to the next thing. Technology is not a problem to be solved. It's a brand new context. It's a brand new reality in which we have to learn to parent. When you do understand that, for me at least, when I understood that, I was like, okay, I need to re-look at, my solutions. Mm-hmm. Because there's not going to be a solution. And a solution could change tomorrow. So this is just realizing like this is just a new reality in which we need to learn to parent.
Well, I love that because part of the solution is talking about it, is admitting that we don't have all the answers, that there is not just one solution, and that we can together figure this out, which is part of what this resource is really meant to do, is just to bring up conversation between parents, between each other. You want to introduce the second big principle?
I mean, it's just another idea to hold on to, that technology isn't bad. it's powerful. Like, I know at transit, when we would always teach sex, it's not bad, it's powerful. Because so much of us are, especially parenting, we're just scared of what could happen.
Yep.
We're so scared of what could happen, we talk about technology as if it's bad.
Yep.
And the reality is it's powerful. And when it's handled wrong, it can do terrible things. When it's handled right, it can do amazing things. And so as a parent, I just think it's important that early on and often you remind yourself, this isn't because technology is bad, even though I'm maybe dealing with a bad, situation. It's just that it's powerful.
Yeah.
So, the image I have is like, we would never just hand our kids keys to cars and say, good luck. But in reality, in our culture, what often happens is, as you know, from your kids, if they've ridden the bus home in 4th grade or 5th grade or 6th grade, many parents have handed them a smartphone and said, good luck, with access to all that it can do. But when we handle it as though it's powerful, we tend to make better decisions about how we teach our kids about technology. We don't want them to be afraid of technology. We want them to own technology. We don't want to protect them from technology. We want to prepare them for technology. So that our kids, I think the vision is, for me, and I'm sure it is for you, I want to see my kids going out into that world of phone zombies, which is not that hard to imagine because we live in a world of phone zombies, with the ability to control their technology as opposed to being controlled by technology. And that sets them up for huge success.
Well, I love that simple little idea that we're never really going to be able to protect them from it.
No.
But we can do a lot to prepare them for it.
And protecting them along the way is part of the plan. But at some point, you have to let go. We want them to move out someday. At least I do. They need to move out and they need to be on their own. So
the third big idea, Chef, is this, that conversation is the ultimate app to help parents win with technology. Tell us what that means. By that, you don't mean that some people just went to the App Store looking for an app called Conversations. That's not what you mean.
And that's what they want. Yeah. It's just way more difficult than that. It's, for me, the solution for technology is very untechnological. Mm-hmm. And it is the ongoing conversation because technology is going to change faster than we can keep up with as parents. Even our kids can keep up with, though they're much better at it than we are. Your kids probably know more than you ever will about it. And so the conversation allows us to keep talking about it, allows us to be aware of what's really going on in their world, on their phone, in this other context, that they're talking about. And I just love conversation because it's that two-way thing. Yeah. One of the great approaches is, hey, can you tell me about this? I don't understand it.
What are some other conversations, maybe even ones that you've had with your 17-year-old? Give us some examples just to help parents know what that even could look like.
Right. Well, no's and not yet's are great opportunities for conversation. Why is it no and why is it not yet? So often the conversation will be about what app I can download. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Can I have an Instagram account?
Right. Yeah. So that's an even bigger issue. There are simple apps that are one thing. Social media is a whole nother monster of its own. Yeah. So if they do come to you, no and not yet, I talk about the 3 C's, content, connection, and commitment. Content, connection, and commitment. So talk to your kids about it. What's the content? What's it rated? That's somewhat helpful, although their ratings are different than I would, necessarily rate. But that's helpful. Connection, really, you're thinking about who has access to my kids.
Anyone in the world can now have a conversation with you about something, and we're not ready for that yet.
Right.
Yeah.
And in some apps, you can turn that off, all those sorts of things. Sure. That's sort of the research that you could do depending on how old your kids are. Some, they have connection in that they're playing somebody else. Some of them, they're playing somebody else, and that person can talk to them. That's the connection thing you really have to understand. And then there's commitment. I always use the example of Flappy Bird. I'm about 10 years behind, maybe.
Remember Flappy Bird?
Remember Flappy Bird? It was
the sensation that took over the world.
Right. For me, it was about a 7-second commitment because I was terrible at it as I tried to, get my Flappy Bird to go through the stuff. But it can also be a 24-hour commitment. Yeah. It's just something to think about and talk about. And the no is really a great way to have the conversation. And here's why it's a no. And here's how maybe it could be a yes later. I think one of the other big conversations to have is, when politics are going on, you can bring up social media and talk to your older kids about responses some people have had What do you think about that? What do you think other people think about that? Which really opens up the conversation, that's important. Like, hey, colleges are going to be looking at your social media someday, by the way.
Well, and that, times where there are news stories that come up where a player loses a scholarship because
100%.
of something they said years ago.
Right.
Those are great things to say, hey, have you read this article? Did you see this? What do you think about that?
You should 100% talk about that. And here's the good news. Because your kids are surrounded by other kids with phones, there's plenty of content to talk about people who have made mistakes. So, what happened there? What do you think? How do you think we could have avoided it? What is some of the rules you think you need to be thinking about so that you can avoid that sort of situation, whether it's text messages, content, pictures, social media that I publicly posted something I could never take back. And then just really leaving yourself out there for someone to contact you who doesn't have necessarily good plans.
Well, I love that simple concept that conversation is probably going to be our best bet.
Yeah.
That there is not a magic bullet. There isn't an easy answer, a simple solution, but conversation in most things with parenting is what we want to open up and what we want to look toward.
Right.
Do you want to introduce the fourth one?
Yeah, it's just this idea that the best technology rules for your kids are house rules. The best technology rules are house rules. And so, again, they're digital natives. If you're anything like me and my wife, we look at our phones way too much too, at the wrong times, all these sorts of things. So entering into the conversation, not as if this is a problem you have, but this is a problem we have, and we're all trying to get better at it. It's just a healthier place to start. We had a conversation with my oldest, it's been years now, and we're like, what do you think the rules should be? And he had the idea that, why don't we just keep phone downstairs? And so at the bottom of our stairs is this, chest that we keep actually wrapping paper and tape and all kinds of stuff.
Wrapping paper, tape, and iPads and phones.
And then and old keys, whatever. And on top of that, you can tell the kids are upstairs because their phones, they set them down as they go upstairs. And it really has been one of the best rules ever. And so when my kids are upstairs, I know I don't need to worry about who they're talking to, who they're texting, who's got access to them. FaceTime is an interesting one that most people don't think about. But when you FaceTime somebody, you're inviting them into your world in a way bigger way than if I'm talking on the phone. And so to FaceTime somebody from your bedroom is to invite someone into your bedroom. So it's just a little bit of a conversation to have. So with FaceTime, it was nobody FaceTimes without permission. Obviously, that's not mom and dad's rule, but that is the rule for the kids. I heard one the other day. Anybody can use anybody's phone at any time.
I love that.
Isn't that good? I mean, you have nothing to hide. If you have something to hide on your phone, now, obviously, I don't want my kids deleting important business emails, but there should not be anything in those emails that I'm worried about somebody seeing. No secret passwords. We have a family password. That's a rule with our kids. They're not allowed to have any secret passwords. We need to know every password that they have on their phone. But we do. We tell them, when you put your phone down at night, because they can't take them upstairs, we may look at it. It's just a good.
Well, this one, number 4, is probably going to be the hardest one for parents because it's submitting ourselves to the accountability of the family. And that's not easy to do. I mean, we love having rules for our kids that we don't have to abide by. But I think when it comes to technology, it is so helpful to say, hey, we're all, because this is not just a kid problem. I mean, most people that have kids, oftentimes the people that have the biggest problems with technology are the parents. Too much time on social media, too much time on the screen. So I love that concept. That
no phones at dinner. Where do the phones sleep?
I don't know how you're going to take a picture of your food if you don't have the phone at the table, though, Chef. What are we supposed to do about that?
That's right. That's right.
That's an excellent one. The 5th big principle of technology from Tom Chef Eunice is, drum roll.
Well, it's biblical, so you need a drum roll.
Great.
Yeah. So the concept is don't be mastered by anything, which isn't my concept. It's actually the words of the Apostle Paul. And I think it's really the biblical mandate when it comes to these sorts of things. Obviously, the Apostle Paul did not address technology directly, but it's in 1 Corinthians 6:12. I have it so I can say it right. I have the right to do anything, you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but I will not be mastered by anything. So he's talking to the Corinthians. He's talking to these people who are trying to figure out, what it's like to move from the Old Testament law-based system to the good news or the gospel.
You can now eat bacon.
Yeah, that Jesus has covered our sins. And so really, can't we do anything? Yeah, you can basically do anything, which is a dangerous message. It feels like a dangerous message as a parent. But at the same time, Paul said, hey, here's how you can tell it's not good for you. It's like, hey, when you lose control, when it becomes your control, then you have a problem. I think it's really a great way to think about it. And so this is one thing I talk about with my kids all the time is like, they're looking at their phone nonstop. And again, they can also check me on it.
Yeah, that's right.
I do as well. I mean, we all medicate a little bit with technology or Facebook or shop on Amazon or whatever it is. But eventually medication becomes an addiction.
Yeah,
and
becomes avoidance.
Yeah, and data addiction is a very real thing. I think 20 years from now, we're going to look back at this time and we're going to really understand what it's done to our minds and therefore our hearts during this time. But it's real, and it's one reason, and it's a great way to talk to our kids about why this is so important. That this is actually, at the end of the day, an identity issue. It's a faith issue. It's a following Jesus issue.
I love that. What are some signs as you think about your own kids? What are signs parents can look for to go, oh, I think my kid's mastered by this?
I mean, when you can't see their face,
that's one. Or you haven't looked eye to eye with them in days.
Yeah, right. Or you can't see their face because you have your face in it. Right. I think, when it becomes emotional to put your phones down, when they start sneaking around the rules, like any addiction, sneaking is a great indicator that there's something more going on. I think to some degree, none of us are going to come out of this current culture and our technology without some sort of damage to this. Our job is really to minimize it. Our job is to point it out. Our job is to say, this is not normal and not okay. Yeah. But our job is also to celebrate, but we're doing so much better than many of the folks around us. And so
it's a constant battle. Yeah. Which I think is why this next one, number 6, is such a great concept that you have, that misdemeanors are a win.
Yeah. You definitely will have issues, right? I mean,
it's a given.
It's a given. I mean, think about you or me as a 15, 16, 17-year-old with access to what our phones give us access to. We're going to make mistakes. And so storms are coming. In fact, you can probably sit down with your spouse or whoever, that is helping you raise your kids and predict, the top 10 things that are going to come up.
Somebody's going to look at something they shouldn't. Yeah. Somebody's going to buy something they shouldn't. Somebody's going to spend too much time. Somebody's going to be in a relationship with someone that they shouldn't.
Yeah, and someone's going to send them something that they shouldn't have. And what do they do with all of that? All these plans. So those are the real conversations. And they're going to feel in the moment like an emergency to you. Mm-hmm. But in an emergency, there are two victims and victims can't empathize. And so a lot of times we look back at these discussions and we regret, I should have kept my head in the midst of that. Well, the only way to prepare for emergency is to drill. The only way to prepare for emergency is to practice. When this emergency comes up, here are the things that we need to do. It's why our kids do fire drills. And
that's right. That's why Allen Iverson loved the idea of practice.
There you go.
We're not talking about the game. We're talking about practice.
Right. We're going to practice when the heat is on, how we respond. And so just identifying, saying out loud, hey, misdemeanors are a win. I'm glad it's happened now. I'm glad it's happened while we're under the roof. I'm glad it's happened in a place where we can talk about these things.
Sorry to interrupt you, but anything that happens in the house is really a misdemeanor because it's so much better that it's happening under the confines of your family than when they're 21 or 25 or
because
30.
We can classify it as a misdemeanor.
That's right.
It gets out of our hands once they're kind of out and on the way. Andy Stanley taught me about really a practice senior year where I'm going to let my kids experience freedom their senior year as if they're in college.
It's great.
Because they have a safety net under them while they're still at home. And it works for a lot of kids. It doesn't work for others, but you're preparing them for the world, not protecting them from it. It's a really important thing.
And the reason why that's helpful to say that is because you don't want them to hide.
No.
You don't want them to go under the radar. No. You don't want them to have their own workarounds. You want them to be able to say, hey, I don't know what to do about this, and I've got a situation. And if they don't have to fear punishment, I think that's the goal, so that we can have those conversations in the home.
Yeah, imagine a teenage child coming to you and saying, awkwardly as they should, I'm really struggling with this. Can I get help? Super uncomfortable. I don't know what to do. Doing my best not to freak out on the outside,
But you're not going to say in that moment, thanks for telling me you're grounded.
Right. Well, you shouldn't. Some people might. Right.
Maybe I should
Right.
say that.
I mean, but in that moment, the other option is they go to someone else, they go to Google, they go under.
Or they never feel like they can say it, raise their hand, say, I need help.
Which is a terrible way to live.
Yeah. So the seventh one, Chef, I was really eager to jump into because earlier you kind of touched on it.
Yeah.
And so this will be a fun one to talk about. But number 7, the seventh big principle is don't spy on your kids. Now, you don't have passwords on your kid's phone. You said anybody can get on anything at any time.
Right.
What's the difference, though? What do you mean by that? Don't spy on your kids.
I guess really what I'm saying is don't spy on your kids without telling them you're spying on them.
There you go.
Is really what I'm saying.
Which is the whole definition of spying.
Which isn't spying.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
right. When they know about it, you know. So, you know, with my kids, I have Life 360, which tracks wherever they go or where their phones go.
And they know it.
And they know it, right. And they can track me, too. So I get, you know, and I get my phone lights up and I can see that Mac has finished his 4-mile drive to swimming. I can see how his fastest speed, I can see his slowest speed. I can see how many times he accelerated quickly, slow down too fast and all those sorts of things. That's just, you know, but he knows it. And so he had, you know, and if he turned it off, I would know it. And he knows that, hey, by the way, if you turn this off, it will let me know you've turned this off and we're going to have a conversation. So there's that. I think just telling kids, hey, I'm going to check your phone. In fact, I would never give my kids a phone until they're 18. I would always just let them use one of mine. It's a very small thing. So don't give your kids a phone on their birthday as a present.
Yep. So I'm not spying on you. That's my phone.
It's my phone. It just helps, you know. I'm paying for it and it's my phone and I'm allowing you to use it. So I'm going to check it out. And by the way, let's have conversations real quick. If I see something that one of your friends says that's inappropriate, here's how we're going to go from there. We're going to talk about it. We're going to decide what's best. But you really have to be careful because if you're questioning your kids on every single little thing their friends say, whose parents probably aren't watching, they'll probably go underground. They'll start to hide from you. So you just really have to pick the big battles.
What's the principle behind that? Why is it so important to just say, hey, we're going to not have passwords. It's my phone. I can look at it anytime. You shouldn't be surprised that I'm checking.
Yeah.
Why is that so much better than the idea of spying?
I just think, you know, I remember getting a call from a friend of mine. He's like, you know, my son's up. It looks like he might be parking, you know, with his girlfriend. I was like, well, have you told him you're watching him? He's like, no. I'm like, well, okay, this is going to be super awkward. It's going to feel like you're, you know, that you don't trust them. Mm-hmm. And so from the beginning, it's not that I don't trust you. It's that I care for you from the beginning. It's not that I don't trust you. I need to know where you're going on the internet. As a man, I have accountability partners, and so I'm going to be your accountability until you're old enough to choose your own. It's just an important part of that. I think the other thing it does for our kids is it gives them an out. They can always blame me as dad. Hey, my dad looks at the phone, by the way, so be careful what you send me. Hey, my dad tracks, by the way, so I can't go there. It's just a great out where they can blame me and make better choices.
Well, I think that principle is probably, I would guess it's one of the ones that is probably hard to pull back.
Yeah.
If you're a parent that the kid already has the phone and you've never told them that you are every now and then looking, what would you say to that parent?
Yeah, that's the hard one. I mean, the best way to do it, the best way to have this kind of foundational conversation, we're actually going to talk a little bit about this in the next point. The best time to have it is before you give your kids a phone.
Yep.
In reality, most people don't, and they're feeling the pain of it. Here's the thing. You're probably punishing your kid. You probably have seasons of taking the phone away. Every time you're about to re-give it back is an opportunity to kind of reset.
Yeah. We're going to have some new rules this time.
Right. Yeah. I've even said to some families, like, maybe after that week of the phone being away, maybe you go and upgrade their phone and come back. And now you've kind of simulated that whole first moment. I mean, the moment you're sitting across from them for the first time with a phone and they know they're going to get it, I mean, you could get them to paint the house. You could get them to do.
Goodness.
They will say yes to anything. Yes. And so you really want to get back to that moment where you have control of the conversation. They have something you have something they really want. And then you can talk about it where they're agreeing to it. And it becomes much less I'm making you do this, and much more this is how we're going to move forward in the future, because I don't like fighting with you as much as you don't like me fighting with you. So
I would just also say to parents, you know, it's always it's never a bad thing to go to a child and say, hey, I've learned something new that I didn't know.
No.
And we're all learning something new. And if I had it to do over again, I wouldn't have done it this way. Right. But I've just now learned, and I just want to tell you now, I have access to everything on your phone.
Well, and in that moment, I would also say, I just want to tell you now, as the parent, it was my responsibility, and I'm sorry.
That's right.
I missed that.
That's right.
And I'm going to do better, and here's how I want to start.
It's great.
You know, and kind of go from there.
So the last one, Chef, number 8, give it to us.
Well, it's just you need a plan. And the plan really comes down to 3 basic ideas. Like when it comes to, and again, technology, you start training your kids for phones the minute they have some sort of device. So little kids with apps, they're watching, Sesame Street or Disney Plus or whatever it is they're watching. You're starting to, in fact, the resource we're going to give you kind of shows like a plan from the first time they touch technology all the way up through to letting them go as an 18-year-old. It's a great resource. It's put out by the Parent Queue. And I love it. But when it comes to phones specifically, you have to have that first foundational conversation. And the problems with phones is they're not just phones, they're everything. So it's a complicated conversation. So to enter in that conversation without taking some time to really think through, this is what I want to talk about, this is kind of the plan. And so there's the breadth of what a phone really is. And then the other thing you have to plan for is there's the length of or the width of like, hey, over time, we're going to start giving you more and more access to this thing. Mm-hmm. So that by the time you're 18 or by the time you enter your practice senior year, you've got full access to everything and you've got your own ways of controlling technology so it doesn't control you. So again, that's the initial plan. You got to have that conversation. And then the next part really is the idea that you have to figure out how to have an ongoing conversation. Yeah. Like, how am I going to make sure that it comes up?
What are the check-ins going to be like?
Whether I'm, subscribed to something that gives me ideas, or I follow some sort of Instagram that allows me to see what's new in technology just to keep the conversation going as we go. And then really it's the last part is, how am I going to let them go? How am I going to set them up so that they can move out and be their own responsible adults, heading into that world of technology zombies, being in control?
Well, the idea that we can't always protect them, there are things we can do to protect them, but ultimately we can't, but we can prepare them. I think that is that's got to be a part of our plan. That's got to be the guiding principle, that our hope is that one day they would be an adult that knows how to regulate themselves, that knows how to say, hey, I'm spending too much time on my phone, and that's the goal. And that's a big difference than trying to protect them from every possible mishap or
which you can't do, by the way.
You just can't. Yeah. If they want to hide, they're going to hide.
Yeah.
And so really teaching them how to be prepared for life after this is the goal.
Yep.
Any other big thoughts in summary, Chef? Anything you'd say to parents?
I just would say this is hard. Like, don't get down on yourself. I think give yourself some grace. You're doing a great job. You're thinking about this.
That's right.
Which is so much more than many parents are doing. And thinking about this is really the first step. Sticking with it is the next step, and you can do it.
And fortunately, we've got a God that says, hey, I'm right there with you in the middle of all of it.
That's right.
And I think that's ultimately what maybe the best thing we could do is pray for our kids and beg God that he would be that protection for them, as he has been for so many of us in so many different ways. Hey, thanks for your voice. Thanks for being a leader in our church. Thanks for thinking about this, giving us a framework. This has been, I know for me as a parent, I've got a lot of work to do now, but it has been very helpful.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
We hope that this conversation has been extremely helpful and that these 8 big ideas can help you and your family as you navigate the ever-changing world of technology. And we want to provide you with a resource in order for you to lead your child's technological responsibility. So click the link below and find the age-specific guide that will help you lead your child. We know that parenting in the digital age is tough, and we know that you want to get it right, and we want to help.